together is exactly what's going on in our science textbooks. Now, folks, I like science. I taught it for 15 years. I even have a PhD in education. Stands for post-hole digger. Got one. I'm not against science. I want two kids here that like science that would like to learn the scientific way to shoot a rubber band. Okay, right there, ma'am. Do you know how to do this already? No, come on up here. Come on up here. And one more. Let's get one boy up here. One boy that wants to learn the scientific way. You can do it. Come on. You want to learn this? You can be a movie star, too. People are going to see this all over the place. Now, what's your name?
Lindsay.
Lindsay, and this is?
Aaron.
Aaron. Let me get my rubber bands here. I just happen to have a few rubber bands. Okay, Lindsay, pick a rubber band out of there.
Okay.
And Aaron, right? I want you to see how far down the center aisle you can shoot that rubber band. Okay, Lindsay, go ahead.
Okay.
Right there. Oh, wow. About 8 rows back. Okay, Aaron. Ooh, about 9 rows back. Now, I know the scientific way to shoot a rubber band. In just a moment, you're going to ask me a question. And the question has 5 words in it. I already know the question that you're going to ask me. Watch this. You ready? Back row of the church. And the question is?
How'd you do that?
How did you do that? I told you, it had 5 words in it. Now, I am fully aware of the fact that some people should not learn how to do some things.
He's one of them.
He's one of them. She says he's one of them. Okay. Now pay attention. There are 2 sides to the rubber band. Are you with me so far? Okay. One side represents your flesh, your body. The other side is your spirit. What most people do wrong, and what both of you did wrong with rubber band shooting, you put the same emphasis on the flesh and the spirit. If you stretch both sides the same, when it goes through the air, if you could watch it in slow motion, they are fighting with each other all the way. So all the energy is being used up on internal turbulence. Not good. The secret to high-speed velocity through a fluid medium such as the atmosphere, which offers resistance, is to minimize or eliminate the turbulence. All I did differently when you weren't watching is I put one side tighter than the other, like this. This is tight, loose. It's okay. Now, what's going to happen, if you can release it quickly enough, it takes a little practice, but it'll spin through the air, taking away the turbulence. So the spirit actually leads the flesh. So when I'm standing up here speaking, realizing I can hit anybody in the room, it's an awesome feeling. You can understand that, can't you?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Hey, thanks. Let's give him a big hand here. Have a seat. That is one of about 50 different science lessons we teach kids at our Dinosaur Adventureland, how to shoot the rubber band the scientific way. And some of you are not going to go very far in your life because you put too much emphasis on the flesh. Quit emphasizing the flesh so much and start emphasizing the spirit, and you'll be amazed what you can do for the Lord. When we get done here today, we're going to make some paper airplanes that'll go about 400 feet during the break time. You can get on our website and see how to make those under super long-distance airplanes. They're pretty cool, too. We like science. I'm not against science, folks, but I'm telling you, there's some poison mixed in with our science books. And that's what I want to show you today. I'm not against the science. I'm against the poison part. Here's a first-grade textbook. They tell the kids in first grade, Earth has changed much since its formation 4.5 billion years ago. Now just hold on a minute. Is the Earth 4.5 billion years old? No, as we'll see in a minute. But if you tell that to a first grader, he's going to believe you. First graders believe everything you tell them. They believe bananas are moldy spider legs. I did. And then tell them again in second grade, since its formation 4.5 billion years ago, Earth has changed. Down here it says, life too has evolved on Earth. This word evolved is a very tricky word. I've had 77 debates now at universities. I've learned how to win the debate in the first 5 minutes. If somebody says, do you believe in evolution? I simply say, what do you mean? Because there are 6 different meanings to that word. You let them define exactly what they mean, and you probably believe in it. Because one of the 6 meanings is indeed scientific, and I do believe in it. 5 of them are not scientific. They're silly. But they mix them all together like it's some kind of package deal, and you got to buy them all at the same time. This is how they confuse the kids. It's so simple. Now watch this. The first meaning of the word evolution would have to be cosmic evolution. Somewhere, somehow, time, space, and matter have to come into existence. The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, that's time. Time has 3 dimensions, past, present, future. You know, you can't be any place and be outside of time. It permeates everything. In the beginning, God created the heaven. Heaven is 3 dimensions, length, width, height. And earth, matter, has 3 dimensions, solid, liquid, gas. A trinity of trinities in only 10 words. You know, you can't have any one of those without the other 2. If you had matter but had no space, where would you put it? If you had matter and space but had no time, when would you put it? Those 3 come into existence simultaneously. The Big Bang Theory has to try to answer that. It's a dud. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you have to have what we call cosmic evolution. Secondly, there would have to be chemical evolution. If the Big Bang Theory is true, the Big Bang produced hydrogen and maybe some helium. Well, then how did we get all these other elements? People say, oh, it's done by fusion. Yeah, you can't get past iron with fusion. Better study that one out. Thirdly, we'd have to have what's called stellar evolution. The stars would have to evolve. Did you know nobody's ever seen a star forming? We see stars blow up all the time. It's called a nova or a supernova if it's a big one, but nobody's ever seen one form. One atheist I debated said, oh, we see a star forming right now in Crab Nebula. I said, no, you don't. You see a spot getting brighter. You are assuming a star is forming. It could be the dust is clearing and there's a star behind it. Nobody's ever proven the formation of one star. And yet there's enough stars out there that we know about that everybody on planet Earth can personally own 2 trillion of them to yourself. Those are the ones we know about. We don't know about the ones that we don't know about. Fourthly, there would have to be organic evolution. Somewhere, somehow, life has to get started from non-living material. The evolutionist is stuck with a very embarrassing position. He still believes in spontaneous generation, even though it was proven wrong 200 years ago. They're way behind the time in their science. Then we'd have to have what we call macroevolution. This is where an animal changes to a different kind of animal. Nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. You may get a big dog or a little dog, but you get a dog every time. And it could be that the dog, the wolf, and the coyote had a common ancestor. I wouldn't argue about that. But they're the same kind of animal. And every 5-year-old kid knows they are. Is anybody in here 5 years old? Who's 5 or 6? Yes, sir. Way at the back. What's his name? Sal. Seth? Sal. How do you spell that? S-A-L. Sal. Okay, Sal, I want you to take a test here, buddy. Here we have a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? Sal? The banana. Let's give him a hand. All right. Very good. This kid's 5 years old. He can figure it out. We got college professors that can't figure it out. They think everything's all the same kind. Yeah. The Bible says they're going to bring forth after their kind, not after their species. Darwin's book was The Origin of Species. That's not even what the argument's about. What's the origin of kinds? That's where the argument ought to be. And a kind is those that can bring forth. That's how you determine what a kind is. A horse and a zebra can bring forth. A horse and a banana cannot. Lastly, we have what is called microevolution. I don't like that word. I think it confuses people, okay? But they call it microevolution. Okay, I think it ought to be called just a variation. Whatever you call it, it happens. Variations within the kind happen, folks. Some pretty bizarre variations. You know, big dogs and little dogs. No question. Variations happen. That one is scientific. It should not be called any kind of evolution, but they do it, so okay, we'll call it. The first 5 are purely religious. That's not part of science. The teachers are taught in their teachers' manuals, be sure to stress that the earth is billions of years old. Make sure the kids believe this. Now, I happen to be a little old-fashioned. I think in science class we should be teaching science. Things we can observe and study and test and demonstrate. Things like the first law of thermodynamics, which tells us matter cannot be created or destroyed. Well, everything's made out of matter, so if matter cannot be created or destroyed, how did the world get here? We're here, you know. So that leaves only 2 choices. Somebody made the world, or the world made itself. There's no other choice. Well, there are a few out there on the lunatic fringe who will tell you, we're not really here at all. We just think we're here. Okay, you can forget about those folks. We are here. So either somebody made the world like the Bible says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, or the world made itself like the humanists believe. Well, if the world just made itself, how did it get here? Well, the devil thought about that for a long time, and finally one day he came up with the Big Bang Theory. How many of you have ever heard of the Big Bang Theory before? I was on the airplane years ago flying from Dallas to San Francisco, the land of the fruits and the flakes. And I happened to sit right next to a professor from Berkeley, UCal Berkeley. I don't know if you folks here in Wisconsin have ever heard of Berkeley or not, but Berkeley is not a Bible college. So here I was on the airplane, sitting about that far away from this guy, and we started talking about creation and evolution. Everybody I sit by on the airplane wants to talk about that. So I talk about it with him. He said he believed in evolution. I said, yes, sir, I figured that. You have to teach at Berkeley. I said, tell me, sir, if you believe in evolution, how did the world get here? He said, it came from the Big Bang. I said, really? I'd like to hear about this. He said, you're a science teacher and you've never heard of the Big Bang? I said, oh, yes, sir, I've heard a lot about the Big Bang. And I believe in the Big Bang. But my Big Bang is a whole lot different than yours. You tell me about your Big Bang, and then I'll tell you about my Big Bang. And so the professor started off on one of those answers. It looked like it came straight from the textbook. He said, well, Mr. Hovind, I believe about 18 or 20 billion years ago, all the matter in the universe. Ooh, now that's a lot of stuff. And by the way, did you know the word universe comes from two Latin words? Uni means single, and verse is a spoken sentence. You know, we have verse and prose. Did you know we live in a universe, a single spoken sentence? God said, let there be. Now that'll preach, brother. There's a sermon in there someplace, okay? And if you can't find it, you ain't got no preach in you at all right? All the matter in the universe was concentrated into one very dense, very hot region that may have been much smaller than a period on this page. What? Everything in the universe squished into a dot smaller than a period on a page? Wow. That's one crowded dot. And heavy, too. Who held that thing up? By the way, this ain't the first time it happened, kids. This textbook says, someday all of the matter and energy will once again be packed into a small area, no bigger than the period at the end of this sentence. Then another Big Bang will occur. It happens every 80 to 100 billion years. Did you know they cut down a tree to print that? Where's Al Gore when you need him? That's what I want to know, yeah. Now, this textbook author was brilliant. I could not believe how smart this guy was. He said, boys and girls, nothing really means nothing. You have to be at least that smart to write a book. He said not only matter and energy would disappear, but also space and time. However, physicists theorize that from the state of nothingness, the universe began in a gigantic explosion. What? Yes, boys and girls, you see, one day, nothing exploded. And here we are. Oh, that explains it. That sure does. We could spend hours talking about the Big Bang Theory. Get my college class, CSE 101, if you want to get into a whole lot more. We took our seminar and stretched it out to 60 hours and chased every rabbit and kicked every dog. And it's a whole lot more stuff on the college class, CSE 101, 102, 103, and 104. Here's Discover magazine from April 2002. They said, boys and girls, where did everything come from? Yes, right here it says, the universe burst into something from absolutely nothing. Zero, nada. As it became bigger, it became filled with even more stuff that came from absolutely nowhere. How is that possible? Ask Alan Guth. His theory explains everything. Wow, I got to meet this Alan Guth guy. Alan Guth said in Scientific American, he said, boys and girls, the observable universe could have evolved from an infinitesimal region. In the Greek, that's a dot. He said it's then tempting to go one step further and speculate that the entire universe evolved from literally nothing. Wow. Yes, boys and girls, you see, we all came from a dot, and the dot came from nothing. They call that science and put it in a science book. I think I'd call that a fairy tale and put it in the garbage. I said, Professor, well, what happened to your dot? He said, well, Hovind, about 20 billion years ago, all the dirt in the universe was in this one little bitty tiny dot. And it was spinning real fast. This is what the textbooks teach. It spun faster and faster. And one day, boom, it exploded. And the pieces flew off, and they became galaxies and sun, moon, stars, and finally, people. And we're nothing but stardust. I said, sir, may I ask you a few questions, please? He said, sure. What would you like to know? I said, well, you told me 20 billion years ago, all the dirt got together for this big squish and the big spin and the big bang. Where'd all this dirt come from? Who made matter? He said, we don't know about that. I said, okay, sir, now hold it. If I told you that I believe about 6,000 years ago, God created the heaven and the earth, then you're going to say, and where did God come from? And I don't know. But you said 20 billion years ago there was a big bang, and you don't know where the dirt came from. So basically, I believe in the beginning.